for a design team on the park already, and then an RFP will go out shortly. So this is a process that is underway, and there is $1.85 million in the city's coffers to spend on the park at this time. There are grants that are available that the intention is to apply for those by the grant deadline for spring of next year. So that's one of the things that's driving the timeline here, to get this going in time to apply for grants for work on the docks and also work in the park. And the intent is to set up, get a master plan in place that can have components of it implemented over time, but really get a chunk of it going using the funds that are available at this time. So, Heather, would you like to say a few words?
I would like to thank everyone for coming today, and for those of you who stood out in the heat and enjoyed the walk with us. We had some good ideas that were shared, and we were able to go over some of our last meeting, which we're really excited to share with you. And please note that we're still keeping the conversation open. Don't think that because we have numbers beside the totals of what we heard at our last meeting that the door is closed. We're going to have surveys that are going to go out after this meeting. We're going to be adding some more results to it. And hopefully we will get some more ideas added to the board based on your all the input on your individual plans for the park. And for the RFQ, July 15th is the deadline for those of you that are interested. So thank you.
Of how the last meeting went, what we gathered from that, and over the course of a few presentations, we'll be introducing kind of what the scope of work is and who the players are in the project. So.
Okay, how many of you came to the first meeting? I see a lot of familiar faces. Great. Wonderful. And how many of you checked out the results online on our Facebook page? Not as many, but we do have them online too. We have the full list, and they're also up here on the right-hand side. If you haven't had a chance, hopefully you can check them out on your way today. So our first meeting was what could it be? And what we did is we broke up into groups, and we focused on water, land, connectivity, and activity. And it was just a big brainstorming session. Everyone got to speak about what ideas they had in these categories. And we tabulated those together because you were all given little dots, and you got to go up and put dots beside your preferred choices. There was no maximum amount of dots you could have, or maximum how many dots you could put beside each activity. And we understand this was just the first shot at everyone's opportunity to reflect upon these things. And we want to dig in deeper, and we're going to do that, like I mentioned just a moment ago, with the survey that will be coming out. Until then, if you were not able to see, as far as water is concerned, there was a lot of discussion about connecting to waypoints and to the ravines, connecting from the park to all of the other wonderful parks that we have surrounding us. There's discussion about having human-powered watercraft, kayaks and sailboats, rowboats, and paddleboards. There's a talk about water taxis. What could we do? Could we connect to Fisher Park? Could we go further into the harbor? And some of those could even be human-powered. There's a lot of talk about accessibility to the beach. A lot of people, especially for children, how do we get to the water? How do we know that there's a beach down here? And then how do we make it more inviting for children and families and people to come down and visit? Today's a good day with the low tide. We were able to get close to the beach on our walk. There's also discussion about interpretive information, some interpretive plaques down in the water about marine life, and a lot of talk about view spaces. We want to see that water that's down there, but how do we do it? And that's something that will also come out of the survey. Do we keep the trees? Do we remove trees? And that was a big area of discussion. As far as land development is concerned, as we'll hear later from our rowing club, that there's a potential for a boathouse to be constructed, and we had a lot of interest in a boathouse being built. There were more picnic areas we'd like to see. We saw a lot of people in the park today enjoying the picnic spaces, and there was hope for some more. Also, as far as view corridors, connectivity, when people are in Winslow, they often get asked, as we heard from our merchants, and we've all probably heard before, where is the park? Where is the water? So we want to have more view corridors from Winslow to the water, we heard. We also want to have, again, open sight lines between towns. And as I said, the difficulty in opening up those spaces is how do you do it with the landscaping and the vegetation, and there was hopes to protect some of the remarkable trees. far as connectivity is concerned, there was a lot of interest in connectivity for our past, and if you haven't had an opportunity, hopefully you can use some of these images that the museum was so kind to put together for us. And we had Bob Woodman with us today on our talk. He's an island resident that got to share some history of the park, and there is interest in preserving the story. As I mentioned, we want to connect to all the parks. We have a lot of parks along the water that are in close proximity to Waterfront Park. We have the Waypoint Park, Pritchard, and Strawberry. How can we connect all these spaces together? And then the connection to the ferry and to the water, and then there's also, with that connectivity, there was discussion about preservation of the stormwater, the ravines, the drainage, and the seas. And activities. This is going to be a pretty active, potentially active park. Lots of activities are voiced, and we're a hungry group, which is why we have refreshments today. Because one of the most popular items was restaurants, food trucks, concession stands, and man, I wish we had one on our walk today. It would have been pretty nice. There's also talk about an eco-dock. This was I'm not really sure how to define it. It was just an idea that someone had. They were inspired by all the conversation, and they wanted to see a non-motorized with swings and maybe some educational component. Basically, a dock that could serve many purposes. Discussion about supporting the rowing activities, and in the uplands, we'd like to see concerts, movies, games for kids, and some more night lighting and fire pits, but not right now. And that concludes the highlights of what we heard.
Thank you, Heather. Looking at the agenda here. So what I'm going to do, we're going to move through this as briefly as possible. I have a quick presentation about some of the things that have been talked about in this park before. The park's been there since the mid-'70s. There have been various schemes and ideas talked about over the course of time, and some have been implemented, some haven't. Some have had pieces or sort of pieces of